Yo guys, Moxsy here with IGN, and today we're going to be talking about how to build out the strongest possible party in Palworld. Now, in this video, we're going to be talking about not only what the best kind of like composition of pals is to do the most damage, but also how do you empower your pals. There's a whole lot of kind of endgame mechanics that allow you to increase the damage, health, and defense of your pals, and utilizing all of those mechanics is going to drastically increase your efficiency and damage. I hope you guys enjoy the breakdown. Let's do this. Now, the first thing to talk about is how to make your pals as strong as possible. So we're going to use two examples here. This first one is an Hydrolon Ignis that is fully maxed out. We'll talk about what being maxed out means in a second. But if we just take a look at its stats, it's got 4.4k attack and 3.9k defense with 17.6k HP. If we take a look at this other Hydrolon Ignis, that it's still very, very good. It's got 2.8k attack, 1.6k defense, and 8k health. So it is like level 79. It's one level off. It's got 4 stars. However, it's got like half of the stats as this other Hydrolon Ignis. And so how is that possible? And so the first thing to talk about is how to max out the damage of your pals. So there's a few things that you're going to want to do, and this will only matter for your main damage pal. Now, every pal build that we're going to be showing off today, the goal is going to be to use one pal as your main source of damage and 4 other pals as all party buffs. And we'll talk about what pals you want to use for party buffs, but basically you want one main attacker. Now, one of the first ways to really juice up a pal, I'm not going to like do this for this Hydrolon, but you're going to want to invest pal souls. You can find pal souls all over the world. Once you get to the world tree, getting these is a fair bit easier, but these pal souls will massively increase the stats of your pal. You can see that we can increase its max health by 60%, its attack by 60%, and its defense by 60%. This costs 30 of the small pal souls, 18 of the purple, 18 of the yellow ones, and 90 of the giant pal souls. So usually giant pal souls are going to be your limiting thing. We'll talk later about a really fast way to get tons of these pal souls. But that's kind of the first avenue of ranking up any of your pals that you want to use for some of this harder content, is make sure that they're maxed out via pal souls. Our next stat that we're going to care about on this Hydrolon Ignis is going to be its base stats. Now, this Hydrolon Ignis already has pretty great base stats. It's got 98 health, 100 attack, and 68 defense. These are the pals like IVs. Basically, every single pal in the game is going to have a stat on them. So you can see that this Yakumo is a 69, 53, 4, so 4 defense. These are going to vary on from pal to pal, and they'll be the basis of what its starting stats are. So all of these percentage increases as it levels up, as you add 30% increased attack or 60% increased attack, all of those are based off of your base values, and your base values are determined by your pal's IVs. So when you're breeding, typically I try to breed pals and I'll save ones that have really high IVs. Now, if your pal is something like this, Hydrolon Ignis, which has a 98, 100, 100, this one probably doesn't need one. But let's say we took this Hydrolon Ignis. This one's got a 98, an 88, and a 97. So this Hydrolon Ignis is pretty good. If we wanted to use it for an example of this video, how's this one doing? This one could use a defense as well, so we'll just use this one. But when you're breeding 2 pals together, their parents will determine their IVs. They won't always be exactly what the parents are, but a lot of the times your parent IVs are inherited. So breeding up to like an Hydrolon Ignis, for example, with other Hydrolon Ignises that have good IVs is going to save you a lot of work later on. And if you don't have max IVs, that's where these life fruits are going to come in. Now, these are also farmed in the world tree area, and they will increase your pal's IVs permanently. So you can see that this Hydrolon Ignis, if we use a defense life fruit on it, it's got 68. Now, if we use this, now my Hydrolon Ignis will be at 78. So now he looks much better. He's got all green and 1 yellow stat, and his defense is going to be higher. So that is your second avenue of ranking up your PAL stats. The next avenue of increasing your PAL stats is trust. Now, trust will go up over time, depending on how long and how often you have this PAL out, that it's in your party, that you're doing things with it. This trust will go up over time. It is relatively slow, but trust is a massive increase to the PAL's base stats. So if you are making a PAL and you don't want to just hold it in your party for a while and you want it to be powerful immediately, you can also use kinship peaches. These are best farmed from expeditions, the expeditions that you like send your PALs out on missions. I'll show you the best one to farm in a second. But these will, by using one, will rank up the trust of one of your PALs. I'm not going to use it on this guy because I have some good Hydrolons already, but every time that you use a single one of these kinship peaches, you will get an additional level, and the levels go up to 10. There is also, if you don't have the pink ones yet, there is also the kinship peaches. I believe these give about half a bar, so not quite as valuable, or 1/4 of a bar as the epic variants, but they will also help you rank up your pals' friendship or trust even faster. And the very last thing to power up your pals are going to be awakening crystals. This, when you used on a pal, will massively increase their stats. Well, not massively, but it'll give them another stat boost. We will use it on this guy just to show it off. These are pretty easy to get, actually, but this one right now has 2.8k attack, 1.6k defense, and 8.7k HP. So if we use the Dragon Crystal on him, you can get this cool little like awakening animation. They'll now permanently have this golden aura. And you can see that from like 2.8, we went up to like 3k. From 1.6, we went to 1.8. From like 8.6 health, it went to 9.4. So this is another way to empower your pals. And all of these things you're going to want to do to make the highest damage pals in the game. So showing on screen is going to be a little checklist. You're going to want to have max trust, max souls, max awakening, and max IV stats. So that's a lot of resources to invest into a single pal, a lot of grinding to max out a pal. Now the question is, what pals are worth doing all of this on, and how do you get good pals to begin with to start investing on? Because one of the most important things on your pals that are going to make them good are their passive skills. I do want to mention the strategy that I've been using, and that is Yakumo, because you can ride on a Yakumo, and then whenever you are fighting pals or catching pals, if you have Yakumo out, you have a chance to transfer your passive skills on your Yakumo to whatever you're fighting. And that's still great. You can transfer things like Demon God and get a good starting base to craft on. However, some of the later endgame passive skills, such as Legend, which gives 20% attack, 20% defense, and 20% movement speed, or things like Immortality, which Immortality is going to be vital for like just about every one of our builds. These cannot be passed on through Yakumo. Legend is a legendary skill, and Immortality is a mutation-only skill. However, you can pass on these traits through breeding. Now, I personally use Yakumo as my base for everything because every single pal combo in the game, pretty much, these are all the combos that you can possibly get to make a Yakumo. There's like literally like just about every single pal can make a Yakumo. So the way that you get these crazy passives on your pals, at least the strat that I'm doing, is all you need to do is find a single instance of a pal with Immortality. You get Immortality on any single pal in the game, and then you can breed that Immortality onto a Yakumo. So let's say we get Immortality on a Vixie. The way that you would do this is you just are breeding pals. Whatever you're doing, as long as you're breeding pals, I think you have about a 5% chance to proc a mutation and get mutation skills. Let's say you proc a random mutation and you get a Vixie with Immortality. You'd then breed that Vixie with any Leafan, and you could get a Yakumo with immortality on it. The reason I use Yakumo as a base is because not only can just about every pal breed into Yakumo, but Yakumo can also make just about any pal. So if we want to make an Hydrolon Ignis, which we're going to be using for this build, and we type in Yakumo, I'll have a link to the website down below. But now we can see that Yakumo plus Yormintide Ignis equals Suzaku. Suzaku plus Hydrolon equals Hydrolon Ignis. And a Yakumo plus a Neptilius equals Suzaku. Suzaku plus Hydrolon equals Hydrolon Ignis. So Yakumo can just about make any pal. Now, the exception to this is going to be raid pals or legendary pals. These pals can usually only create themselves with themselves. And so how do you get crazy passives on something like a Bellanoir Libero? And that is going to be through World Tree implants. These are implants. They are one-time uses. You can get a ton of them, and you can get implants for just about everything in the game, even like rainbow passives and mutation passives. So if we wanted to put on immortality on our Bellanoir, this is a Bellanoir immortality implant. If we wanted to put on Demon God, we could implant Demon God, and these are great. They're very powerful, but I would save your implants mainly for pals that don't have pal breeding combos, because you can just use these on them because they are harder to breed with the crazy passives. You could just simply implant those at a surgery table, and then you could have a raid pal with all of the best passives in the game. All right, so that was a lot of setup. I do apologize, but I thought it would be important to kind of explain how we arrived at getting these really strong pals before we showcase what they can do and kind of the party synergies. But the core of any of the builds that we're going to be using in this game are going to be picking one attacker. So we're going to show two builds. This first one is going to be a Bellanoir Libero build. You can fight this as a raid boss. You get a guaranteed egg. As long as you get 2 eggs, you can start breeding this. You're just going to breed it until you get one with decent stats so that you don't have to use a ton of IVs, and then I just implanted on it. But Bellanoir Libero is very special because she has a partner skill called Nightmare Bloom that does a ton of damage. And this build is going to be a Nightmare Bloom spam build. Bellanoir Libero has great stats. She's got some of the highest general rounded stats in the game. And then to pair with her, we're going to be using a combination of kind of generic buffs. And these generic buffs will change based off of what element you are using. But in any single PAL build that you are ever going to use, you will always use Orzhirk. Orzhirk is ridiculous. Orzhirk reads that while in party, fighting an enemy with a hitting an enemy with a bullet increases the attack and defense of the PAL fighting alongside you by 5% for 5 seconds. This effect stacks up to 30 times. Now, the thing that's so crazy about this is we are going to be using the drone launcher. The drone launcher fires all of these autonomous drones that hit an enemy and do constant damage to them. It'll just be constantly ticking, and it stacks up that 150 very, very quickly. So this is 150% increased damage. There's literally no reason to not use this. If you don't have the drone launcher yet, this is still good. You're just going to want to find a fast-firing weapon like an SMG or like a high pellet count shotgun. But 150% increased damage is just too much damage to turn down. Then on this particular build, we're going to be using Lepore. Lepore gives us a 50% cooldown of our partner skill. Note that Bellanoir is unique in that she has a partner skill that deals damage. A lot of partner skills are more passive. A lot of partner skills are mounts. Hers is an attack that does a bunch of damage. So Lepore gives us a 50% increased uptime on her damage attack. And Bellanoir Libero is special in that Nightmare Bloom is like a channeled ability. So by the time it ends channeling, it'll basically be up to attack again. The other PAL that we're going to be using on this build is Celestier Noct. Now, most PAL attack builds are going to be using this mount because of its passive. While in party, the PAL fighting alongside you gradually loses health in exchange for 80% attack increase. Does not stack. Now, losing health sounds pretty bad, but 80% increased damage is great. And that is where the immortality role is going to come in. Immortality is going to give us lifesteal on said pal. These pals are going to be doing tons of damage. It also gives them more attack and auto health regen, but the 5% lifesteal is usually, with the amount of damage that they're doing, more than enough to not only make sure that they don't die, but they can also sustain their life. I will do a multiple minute fight, and my pal is at full HP by the time it ends. So Celestial Knocked, really powerful boost. You just want to make sure that your pal has immortality so that it can heal itself. And then the last pal that we're going to be using on this particular build is Krojiro Knocked. Now, Krojiro Knocked increases party and pal's dark damage to enemy weak points by 40%. Now, this is really important because weak point damage is its own unique multiplier. So we've got a lot of damage increases. 30% increased dark damage, 40% increased attack, 15% increased attack. We've got a bunch of percentage increases attacks via our PAL souls. All of those things are additive together. However, weak points are their own unique multiplier. So I tested this versus 50% increased damage to blind versus 40% increased damage to weak points. And the 40% damage to weak points is much stronger because it is not receiving any diminishing returns. And so Krojiro Knocked is what we're going to be using because it gives us a whole lot more damage for our pals. Now, because you're going to be using one main attack pal, you're not going to be bringing out your other pals. So the pals that you're not using in your party that aren't attacking, having them max stats, having them pal sold, having them max trust, doesn't really matter. I don't have any of my guys pal sold or max trust. I don't have max IVs on them because they're not attacking. What we do care about on these guys is their passives. The most important passive on any pal that is going to be kind of a buff pal is going to be Idiosyncratic. Idiosyncratic reads pal and player auto health regeneration rate plus 50%. This stacks per pal and affects the pal that this isn't on. So it's just tons of extra health regen. The defense, I believe, is local to said pal. You also get immune to poison damage and burn damage. The other two are going to be Vanguard for 10% increased in player attack and Stronghold Strategist for 10% increase in player defense. Note that once you get into higher amounts of defense, defense becomes an incredible important stat for damage reduction, and it'll actually become more important as a stat than health is. So getting tons of defense makes a big, big difference. The last stat on your pal, if you have Stronghold Strategist, Idiosyncratic, and Vanguard, isn't as important. You could go for reload speed, you could go for player health regen, you could go for player stamina reduction, but the two main ones are going to be player reload speed and player health regen. And the last one, I don't have that on my other pals, mainly because I'm using a bow at the moment, and I haven't made a ton of ammo for things that aren't the bow. Reload speed doesn't affect the bow, so I'm not too worried about it. But those are kind of the three things that you want on all of your party pals, are going to be Idiosyncratic, Vanguard, and Stronghold Strategist to increase your attack, damage, and health regen. The next build I want to showcase is the slight variant of what I just showed you. I'm kind of using this as an example of you can kind of take any attacker and a bunch of buffs and kind of follow this general format and make a really strong team. So in this team, we're going to be using Hydrolon Ignis as our main pal. It's got Immortality for its lifesteal. It's got Diamond Body for defense. It's got Legend for attack and defense. But we're also going to be using Serenity on this particular Hydrolon Ignis because note that it doesn't have a partner skill that is an attack. It's got a passive that gives it 6% increased damage for each of its dragon or fire pals in our party, meaning that Lepore, which gives us cooldown, is not going to be present, meaning Serenity becomes best in slot because it's going to give us a bunch of active cooldown for our Hydrolon. We're going to be following that same format. We've got Orzerk, which gives us the 150% increased damage. Celestial Knocked, which gives us the 80% increased damage. Instead of Krojiro Knocked, we're going to be using Bellanoir Ryu. This gives us increased damage to enemy weak points. The exact same stat. Depending on if you're using electric, you'd want a Univolt. This multiplier to weak points is huge. Bellanoir Ryu just happens to be the ones for dragon attacks. And then in replace of Lepore, we are using a Quiverin, while in party increases attack of dragon pals by 30%. So you can kind of get the idea of the format. Basically, take a pal, you're going to want to max it up, give it max trust, give it max pal souls, give it the stats, give it the awakening, get it with good passive stats, and then support it with a team of Zerk, Celestia, Noct, a weak point damage pal, and if it's a partner skill pal, use a Lapur. If it's not a partner skill pal, you're going to want to use a passive damage increase. The one kind of difference on this is if you're applying status effects or not. So, for example, if you're applying status effects like Soaked, then Yormantide, which gives you like 56% increased damage to Soaked pals, becomes a pretty solid option. All right, let's just go do a quick hard tower. And the one last thing to mention is you're going to want to be wearing accessories that increase the damage of your pal. So if you are doing a dark builds, we're going to be wearing the pal dark damage enhancement, the pal dark damage enhancement, pal dark damage enhancement. If you're using dragon fire, you would just want to wear like the opposite of those. But let's bring in our Bellanoir. We'll do the hard mode boss. But basically, we're just going to let our Bellanoir cook. If we see like a really crazy incoming attack, we'll try to move her. So like that big explosion. Oh, I don't want her to get hit by. And then these guards are being a little bit annoying. So we can put in a little bit of damage on them. So that our Bellanoir just focuses on the thing that we want her to kill. Because we're a cooldown build, we could just teleport her and make her do her big laser beam, which is where most of her damage is coming in. And as you can see, like, she's doing fine. I'm getting relatively low, so we're going to want to make sure that we don't die. And she will just do this beam on repeat. That beam will basically full heal her. As soon as she's done doing her basic beam, we'll cast her partner skill, so she just does it again. Really hard for her to die while she's doing that. She'll take some damage, but she should just heal it back up. Let's put her back in. Those are some twisters. Put her back into doing her beam. I'm gonna just let her tank that. She should heal it up pretty nicely. Also, if you're fighting, like, this guy's an electric pal, so not a bad idea for us to put on, like, ground moves. Ooh, that one's hurting her. Oh, that was his minigun. Yeah, the minigun hurts. Most PAL bosses will have, like, one or two attacks that are, like, you should probably watch out for. Get her to heal off of this. Dodge that, so she doesn't have to worry about it. She's already getting pretty healthy. Spam her partner skill. And one more nightmare laser will probably do it. Nice. So obviously, like, if I was, like, full shooting that whole time, it would be more damage, but I kind of just wanted to show you the PAL damage. But that is how to set up some of the strongest PALs and strongest PAL parties in Palworld. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. For all other Palworld tips, tricks, walkthroughs, and guides, make sure to keep it here at IGN.